This video is about the term mutually exclusive. Right? You're going to hear this word not just in math, but also in places like the news. Right? They often talk about events being mutually exclusive. So in this video, we're going to talk about what does that mean. Right? And here's our definition. Two events are mutually exclusive if they cannot happen at the same time. Okay? They're mutually exclusive if they cannot happen at the same time. For example, getting an A on a test and failing that test, right? Those are two things that can't happen at the same time, right? If you have an A on that test, there's no way you have a failing grade on that test, right? Those are mutually exclusive. They cannot happen at the same time. So let's think about some other sets of events, and let's think about whether they are mutually exclusive or not. Right? Remember, mutually exclusive means they cannot happen at the same time. Right? So let's look at the first one. Being a sophomore at a school and being a senior at that school. Right? Are those two things mutually exclusive? And their answer is yes. Those would be mutually exclusive. Right? Because you can't be a sophomore and also a senior at the same time at the same school. Right? Those are mutually exclusive. Right? The second one, how about being a boy and being a sophomore? Right? Those are not mutually exclusive. Right? Because mutually exclusive means they can't happen at the same time. But these two conditions can happen at the same time. You can be male and you can be a sophomore. Right? You can be both of these at the same time. So those are not mutually exclusive. All right, I'd like you to pause and think about 3 and 4. Think about whether each pair of events is mutually exclusive. Okay, let's see how you did. 3. Eating only candy for lunch and eating a healthy meal. Are those two mutually exclusive? The answer is yes. Right? Yes, those are mutually exclusive. Right? Again, because if you have a meal that only consists of candy, right, that can't happen at the same time as having a healthy meal, right? Those can't happen at the same time. Those are mutually exclusive. 4, having an Android phone and having an iPhone. Is it possible to have both? Right? You might have a person who has two phones, right? They've got one that's Android, one that has an iPhone, right? So no, right? Those are not mutually exclusive, right? Because those could happen at the same time. You could have both. So let's talk about how this relates to probability. You roll a 6-sided die once. What's the probability that the number you rolled is odd and greater than 2? Are those events mutually exclusive? Right? So what's the probability that we get a number that's odd and at the same time greater than 2? Right? Well, let's think about what happens on a 6-sided die. Right? We could either get a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, 5, or a 6. Right? So here are all the odds, 1, 3, 5. And then the ones that are greater than 2, well, those would be these. Right? Well, which ones are both odd and greater than 2? Well, that would be these, the 3 and the 5. Right? Those are both odd and greater than 2. Right? So this probability would be 2 out of 6, right? Or 1/3. Right? And let's think about the last part. Are those events mutually exclusive? Right? Well, mutually exclusive means they can't happen at the same time. But these are not mutually exclusive, right? Because it's possible to be both odd and greater than 2, right? So those are not mutually exclusive. All right, you're going to pause and think about this one. All right, see how you did. All right, so same 6-sided die. And we're trying to see what's the probability that the number you got is less than 3 and also greater than 4. Right? are those two events mutually exclusive? Right? Well, one way to think about it is let's look at these numbers, right? Which are the ones that are less than 3? Well, those would be the 1 and 2. Okay. What are the numbers that are greater than 4? Well, that would be 5 and 6. So what's the probability of getting a number that's both less than 3 and at the same time greater than 4? Well, that should be 0. 0 out of 6. Right? It's impossible to be both less than 3 and also greater than 4. Right? And since it's impossible for those two things to happen at the same time, we can say that those two events are mutually exclusive. Right? And that brings us to the last point I want to make about events that are mutually exclusive. If two events are mutually exclusive, then the probability of those two events happening at the same time is 0. Right? So if you know that two events are mutually exclusive, you automatically know that the probability of those two events happening at the same time is 0, right? Which makes sense, because if they're mutually exclusive, they cannot happen at the same time.